Welcome back, everyone, to the True Alien Podcast, your daily dose of all things strange and unexplained. You know, I'm Adrian Smith.
And I'm Julia Jones, resident paranormal probe expert.
That's right, Julia. We're diving deep into some of the most bizarre stories out there, trying to figure out fact from fiction, looking at all the info and trying to make some sense of it all.
And sometimes it's hard to make sense of these stories.
That is definitely true. Today, we're tackling a truly perplexing mystery. The disappearance of the Peterson family from Hollow Creek, Missouri.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about this one. It happened back on the night of July 17th, 2021.
Right, and this one's particularly strange based on the witness accounts and the official reports you've shared with me. So what we're going to try to do today is unpack this whole event, piece by piece, and see if we can get any closer to figuring out what happened to Mark, Sarah, Emily, and Ben Peterson.
A whole family just vanishing like that is chilling.
It really is. So to get started, maybe we should paint a picture for our listeners of what life was like for the Petersons before all this happened.
Yeah, set the scene for us.
All right, so imagine a small town called Hollow Creek, Missouri, right in the heart of rural America. You've got endless cornfields stretching out under this huge sky.
The kind of place where everybody knows their neighbors.
Exactly. And right in the middle of it all was the Peterson family farm.
Yeah.
They lived a pretty normal, quiet life. Mark was a farmer. He spent his days working the lander. Sarah was a school teacher.
They had 2 young kids, right?
They did. Emily was 10, and little Ben was 7.
Seems like a very grounded family.
It does. By all accounts, they were living a peaceful, happy existence. Then, bam, everything changes on that one July night.
Right. What were those first hints that something strange was brewing even before the actual disappearance?
Well, even during the day, on that fateful July 17th, there were a few subtle anomalies that, in retrospect, seem really eerie. Mark was out in the barn working, and he mentioned hearing this weird hum.
A hum? Like what kind of hum?
He said it was almost imperceptible. A low-frequency sound. He couldn't quite place it. It just felt off. And then there was their dog, Buddy.
Oh, yeah. Good old golden retriever, Buddy.
Right. Well, Buddy started acting really strangely that day. Restless pacing, whining. He couldn't seem to settle down.
Animals can definitely sense things that we humans miss sometimes. Could Buddy have been picking up on something unusual?
It's certainly possible. Meanwhile, back at the house, Sarah was experiencing some odd occurrences of her own.
Oh, really?
What was going on inside?
Well, early in the evening, the lights flickered a few times.
That happens in old houses.
Or it does. It could have just been a wiring issue, but then Sarah started noticing this faint metallic scent in the air.
Metallic, huh? Almost like ozone.
Yeah, exactly like that fresh smell you get after a thunderstorm. And little Ben, their youngest, he became super clingy to Sarah that evening, which was really unusual for him.
So even before nightfall, we have these strange happenings. A weird hum, an agitated dog, flickering lights, a strange smell, and a child acting out of character.
Right, it's like the environment itself was shifting in some way. Then, as night fell, things really started to escalate.
What happened? Tell me more. Well, Mark described this low, rhythmic thrumming sound that seemed to vibrate through the air. It was like a pulse.
Oh, wow. And what about the lights?
The lights in the house weren't just flickering anymore. They were going haywire, on and off, totally erratic.
So both sound and light were being affected inside and outside?
Exactly. And Mark, being out near the cornfields, noticed this pulsating glow emanating from somewhere over the tops of the stalks. Naturally curious, he went to investigate.
He must have been drawn to it like a moth to a flame.
I think so. And what he saw is what really kicks this story into high gear. He described this massive triangular object just hovering silently over his cornfield.
Triangular? That's interesting.
It is, right? It's a shape we hear a lot about in these kinds of stories. He said this thing was huge, bigger than his barn. It was emitting this soft, otherworldly glow, and its surface seemed to shimmer and almost undulate like it wasn't solid.
So we've got a massive silent triangular craft with unusual lighting effects just hanging out over a cornfield. That's pretty startling.
It's mind-blowing, right? Meanwhile, back at the farmhouse, Sarah was dealing with her own escalating sense of dread.
Yeah, what was happening inside?
She said the air felt heavy and thick. That metallic ozone smell was getting stronger and stronger, and then something really bizarre happened. All the clocks in the house just stopped working.
What? All of them?
All of them. Every single one frozen at exactly 3:17 a.m.
That's so strange. It's like time itself just froze.
It is. And right after that, the power went out completely plunging the house into darkness.
Oh, man. Talk about adding to the fear.
Right. Sarah and the kids were in total darkness. Then suddenly this blinding light flooded the living room, accompanied by this high-pitched whine.
It sounds terrifying.
Sarah screamed and instinctively grabbed Emily and Ben to protect him. And it was in that moment of sheer terror that Emily caught a glimpse of something standing in the doorway.
What? What does she see?
She described seeing a tall, slender figure, and get this, its skin seemed to shimmer like polished metal.
Whoa, a figure with metallic skin standing in the doorway. That's a detail you don't hear every day. And it ties in with those other accounts we've discussed, where people describe beings with a metallic sheen.
It's a recurring theme, for sure. And while all this was happening inside, Mark was witnessing something equally terrifying outside.
What was going on with Mark?
He saw a beam of light shoot down from that triangular object, and it enveloped his farmhouse.
A beam of light? What was he thinking?
He was horrified. He tried to run towards the house to get to his family, but he said it was like an invisible wall was holding him back.
Oh, wow. So he's completely helpless.
Totally helpless. He could only stand there and watch as this strange light engulfed his home.
I can't even imagine what was going through his mind at that moment.
It must have been pure terror. Now, the next morning, Mark's brother David went over to the Peterson farm.
Yeah, what did he find?
He'd been trying to call them all night. No answer. So he was really worried.
Naturally.
When he got there, what he found was truly unsettling. The farmhouse was completely empty.
Empty. Like no one was there.
No one, the doors were unlocked, some lights were still on inside, and their cars were still in the driveway.
That's creepy.
It is right. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry. It was like they just vanished into thin air.
It's as if something just plucked them right out of their lives.
Exactly. David immediately called the sheriff's department.
Of course. What did the police find?
They searched the entire property and the surrounding area. They were incredibly thorough, but there were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. The only unusual things they found were those stopped clocks that eerie metallic scent Sarah had noticed and Buddy the dog.
What about Buddy?
They found him hiding in the barn, cowering and whimpering, absolutely terrified.
It's as though he witnessed something that completely shook him to his core. Poor Buddy.
Yeah, and despite all their efforts, the search teams found nothing. No clues, no personal belongings, not a single trace of the Peterson family.
That's unbelievable. It's like they disappeared without a ripple.
Right. They brought in ground teams, helicopters with thermal imaging, even search dogs trained to find human remains,
Yep.
but nothing.
Not a single trace.
Nothing. The official investigation basically hit a dead end, and in the absence of answers, rumors started swirling around Hollow Creek.
Oh, yeah, small towns and rumors, it goes hand in hand.
Right? People started sharing stories of strange lights they'd seen in the sky around that time, unusual sounds they'd heard.
The rumor mill churns on.
It does, and then there were the alleged sightings.
Sightings? Like what kind of sightings?
Well, there was a farmer named Earl Johnson who lived a few miles away from the Petersons. He claimed to have seen a massive, silent, triangular object hovering over their field the very night they disappeared.
Just like what Mark saw.
Exactly. And then there was a young boy named Tommy Evans from another farm nearby. He claimed to have seen a shiny man standing in the Petersons' yard.
A shiny man. That's a chilling detail, and it echoes Emily's description of the figure in the doorway.
It does, right? It's interesting how these independent accounts seem to corroborate parts of the Petersons' own story.
It's definitely something to consider, although we always have to be cautious about eyewitness testimony, especially in high-stress situations.
Absolutely. But in the end, the official conclusion of the investigation was simply that the Peterson family vanished. No explanation, no leads, no trace.
In fact, they just ceased to exist.
And to this day, years later, their farmhouse still stands empty in Hollow Creek, a haunting reminder of this unsolved mystery.
So we have this family living a normal life, then all of a sudden, strange sound, strange lights, a mysterious object, a possible encounter, and then poof, they're gone.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. So when we look at this case through the lens of the paranormal, what stands out to you?
It's the lack of a logical explanation. The sensory details reported by different members of the family, those corroborating witness accounts of unusual aerial phenomena, it all points to something truly bizarre.
Right, you've got multiple reports of strange lights in the sky, that classic triangular shape of the object, the metallic ozone smell. These are all pretty common in alleged alien encounter stories.
And what about Mark's description of feeling paralyzed, like some force was holding him back?
Yeah, that sensation of being unable to move is a recurring theme too. And then the ultimate mystery, the complete disappearance of the family. It's a tragic outcome that we see in many of these unexplained cases.
So while we can't say definitively what happened to the Petersons, this case really echoes those patterns we find in other strange and unexplained events.
The evidence is compelling.
It is. And those witness testimonies from the neighbors, they add another layer to the mystery.
Earl Johnson's sighting of the triangular object really backs up what Mark reported, and Tommy Evans's shiny man, while maybe more open to interpretation, lines up with Emily's description.
That's like they all saw pieces of the same puzzle.
Exactly. But as we've said before, we do have to be careful about how memory works, especially in these extraordinary circumstances.
Right, fear and stress can definitely distort what we think we saw.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this paranormal probe into the Peterson family's disappearance, what are your final thoughts, Julia?
The mystery itself is what I find most intriguing. Could there be some unknown event, some force of nature that we don't understand yet that caused this? Or does the consistency of these details point to something truly beyond our current scientific grasp, something paranormal? I think that's the question that lingers.
It's a question that haunts us all, right? The unknown is both fascinating and terrifying.
Exactly. And that's what makes these stories so compelling.
For sure. So for all of you listening out there, what aspects of the Petersons' disappearance stand out the most to you? What questions do you have?
What details make you wonder about the nature of reality and what might lie beyond our understanding?
That's the real heart of it, isn't it? We want to hear your thoughts.
Keep those minds open, folks.
That's right. Julia, thanks as always for sharing your expertise on this very unsettling case.
You're welcome, Adrian. I'm always happy to delve into the strange with you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on the True Alien Podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tune in tomorrow for another deep dive into the bizarre. Until then, keep looking up.
And stay curious.
And maybe keep a nightlight on.
Just in case.